Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 371. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is currently 9:47 on the 28th of March in the year 2024. How you all doing? And it's a Thursday. And then a Thursday in case... How can I send you the video? Well, you can send me the video in my DMs on TikTok, but I won't be able to watch it now if you send it now. So there's that. But you can send it and I'll watch it when we're finished here. Make sure you hit that like button if you are viewing this, if you are looking at this live on TikTok or live on YouTube, as we are streaming also on YouTube. Make sure you hit that like button, double tap the screen over there on TikTok, drop a comment if you have something to say over there on YouTube. And here on a Thursday, we're just talking. We're discussing, we're answering the questions that are asked inside of the live chat. You could also feel free to join the discussion. You could join over there on TikTok and actually talk to me too. If you think I'm wrong about something, say, hey, I want to ask you about this and I think you was wrong, and you could get through it, all of that. So you can jump in over there on TikTok and let's have that discussion. So what's on your mind, people? I saw someone say about the accident with the Kiss truck that happened this morning, and that one, you know, the fact that more and more vehicles have dash cams, it's a different world we are living in now. Like, if it wasn't for the dash cam on that vehicle, that Ionic owner may have never been caught. I remember in some one of those news groups that I'm in on WhatsApp, you know, those million WhatsApp groups, I make sure you must mute them, but they have some benefit every now and again. And someone, when the story about the accident was raised, someone said them Kiss truck drivers always driving like bleep, and that may have actually been the account if there was no dash cam. Yeah, I feel that driver drives so and so, you know, but it wasn't the case. I mean, thank God for the dash cam. It seems, reportedly, the reports that are coming in is, it seems like the man may have been intoxicated. That seems like a sensible conclusion to me when you look at the accident, because the man had quite a few seconds to not run into the back of the Kiss truck. And yet still he did run into the back of the Kiss truck. That doesn't seem like someone who had all their senses about them. It really doesn't seem like that. And the next issue with the woman kicking the child. Bro, that video was... I up till now, to tell you the very truth, to tell you the honest truth, I haven't seen the entirety of that video in. After one kick, I was like, ooh, that's enough of that video for me. That content, I just... it doesn't look good for my psyche. I'm not the kind of person that could take in too much of that content. It disturbs me for too long a time. So, but yes, I saw that. How it's everywhere. What I'm saying is I saw the video, but I didn't see the entirety of the video. The full length of the video was quite a few seconds. I'm not sure. As I said, I didn't see the whole video. I only saw the quarrel, the argument, the voice raise, the first kick, and I'm out. But to our credit in Trinidad and Tobago, to the police credit, they arrested that woman pretty quickly. She was arrested, it seems like within hours. And, you know, that's something I say when we talk even about the legalization or the easing of the access of things like firearms. And here's where I'm going with this. Because people talk about if regular people are just going to go and shoot other people. No. By and large, average citizens who are not career criminals almost always get caught because they are not career criminals. So that's a good thing. She was quickly and swiftly caught. And one of the better things I noted when I looked at the comment sections all around the place is I didn't see a whole lot of defense for her, because something that annoys me to no end is that regularly a bad mother is seen as a victim of circumstances and situation and environment, while a bad father is, well, a bad father. There's no excuse for a father to abuse a child. No, nothing in your history, no mental lapse or mental break. You can't be fired from your job. Nothing excuses that. But all of a sudden, sometimes there are a group of people that are very willing to find excuses, and it's a mental problem and a mental break, and you have to understand and understand and understand. I understand, but let's not be too understanding at the same time. And in being so understanding, you have to understand that the reality is when you're looking at murders of infants and the elderly, women are the majority of those culprits. Just so you know, statistically, you are more, if you are an infant or an elderly person, you are more likely to be killed by a woman. Just so you know. RL says anything to do with kids, the country usually drops everything and investigate at least. Yeah. That's true. Children regularly get put to the front of the line, and as they should be. As they should be. Any country that's not focusing on their children has no future. Listra says not true. What isn't true, Listra?
So
yeah, Trini Hotep, what were you gonna say?
yeah, I think I saw a tweet probably like 2 days ago. Somebody tweeted and say how the country only cares about sexual assault and only care about it when it comes to children. They were talking about the whole Nickelodeon scandal that's right now happening. So, but I find it interesting because I think majority of people are going to care about kids faster than they care about adults, and that's just the truth. Children are the real vulnerable people in the society. So you throw children into the wild. Nobody wants to see that at all. That's why. Sorry to say, that's why the whole feed a child 5 cents a day was a good tactic by UNICEF. It appeals to the heart. That's just how it goes.
It's the truth. And as I said, people can be upset that children are given a higher focus. Listra said, why was the DNA lost? I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to there, Listra. What about the letter about the children homes and what happens there and who's involved? The years gone, no real investigation, absolutely no arrest. Okay, I understand what you were talking about, not true. Now, I am not saying that cases against children are always solved and are treated with the desired level of urgency. I'm saying that they are treated with more urgency than the regular cases. That's usually what we find. And that's why the reporting to the homes keeps rearing its head. They are reporting to all kinds of things all around Trinidad. They are reporting to the prisons and the rapes that are rampant in the prisons. Men are assaulted on a daily basis, but nobody really pays much mind to that because it's men. That's what I was referring to. The children home one is a major one that has never been resolved. You know why I think that hasn't really been resolved, Listra? I think because it's actually harder to resolve than some people understand. There are orphans in this country. There are children who are generally unwanted by some quarters. That's a reality. And what you do with those children becomes a tricky thing. Okay, the people who are taking care of those children as of current are not very nice people. But if you throw those people in prison, who are the people who are going to take care of the children? It's because these homes are private homes, not government homes, RL says. And if there are not private homes doing it, then the government has to do it. Yes, Lister, I went through those cases, you know. I went through that report. If you dig back through my lives, there are entire lives devoted to this. And the young man who came forward and said that the idea that there aren't any witnesses is incorrect, he's up till now willing to give testimony. And they spoke about how they buried certain things. I understand. I'm saying the reality is, I think that's a harder thing to deal with than some people understand and are willing to give credit to. Listra says, so what, leave them there so the abuse continues? They need to be removed immediately. I agree, Listra. Lestra, I hope you understand what I'm saying. I am not defending abusers. I am not saying they should be left to do it. We're speaking realistically, trying to understand how things run and why things are the way they are. Saying why something is the way it is isn't saying it should be that way. It's just saying that is the way it is. So the reality is that it's a difficult problem to deal with orphans, to deal with unwanted children. Children require a lot of resources to take care of them, and they do not reward you much, except further in the future or emotionally. So if you are in a case where someone does not have that emotional attachment to a child, to ask to get people to devote resources to that child becomes a problem. And if you have people devoting resources to keeping the child alive and healthy, but those people are also abusers, okay, you should imprison them, you should deal with them. But then when you do, where does the child go? If you go into St. Mary's home and start arresting from top to cook and cleaner, okay, maybe they should all be arrested. But then all of the children that are in their care, what do you do with them? RL says, and the people only end up in these homes in the first place because of bad parenting culture. The kids. Listra says they won't stay children forever. They grow up and enter society, then the cycle continues. Replace the staff. Listra, replace them with who? Do we have a long list of people who are honorable, decent, not abusive, trained, willing to work for dog money, and are willing to go work with those children? Do we have a long list of people like that? Many social workers and childcare personnel are available. Would they work for the same salaries of the current people that are currently employed doing the job? Bear in mind, the children in the home don't pay to stay in the home. It's not a hotel. Well, fix that compensation issue. Okay. How do we fix that compensation issue? Where does the money come from? Where does the money come from? We spend a lot of money on crap. I agree, we do. So you're saying we should take all of that money and devote it around to opening state-run orphanages, and we will hire all of our social workers and childcare personnel and place them in those state-run orphanages and pay them top dollar. That's what you think is the solution? And understanding how our state runs, you don't see the possibility for a huge amount of problems in that? Oh, you're not saying that. So then how do we do it? That's taking it too far. So then how do we do it? How do we get the current crop of low-paid, abusive staff out and getting new, well-paid, well-meaning staff? How do we do that? And this is the issue that I was highlighting. I am saying I think that this is much more of an intractable problem than some people would like to give it credit for. It's easy to say carte blanche that the government should make sure that no child is abused. Yes, they should. The how becomes a technical issue. Trini Otep, you're going to say something, bro?
I don't think. This is the funny thing because bad parenting culture is here, but children, I mean, it's not a new phenomenon whatsoever. And I think for centuries, the thing about it is this is if you take a page out of America's social services, that's a dastardly, yeah, that's a crazy system they have over there, right? They throw children into that pit right there, and that pit that swallows them. I don't know where to go in terms of this whole thing about gets to take care of children that are either thrown into a system, orphanage, or badly behaved kids. I don't know and fix that problem, the abuse, because it's just okay. It's the same thing with prostitution. Like if women enter prostitution, there's a high risk that you are going to get abused. That's just the truth of the matter.
I think by definition prostitution is abuse. That's my personal opinion.
No, that's me too. That's me too. The thing about it is, it, as they say, it comes with the territory.
Yeah.
Sadly to say, children are in because I was in a children who the territory is that they are going to be starved that are willing. So because you are children are in a system with that really gives a hell about them, and that's just the truth of the matter.
You see, the reality is a child that ends up in an orphanage is sometimes a child that's kind of at the end of their wanted list. People don't want them enough. And a child costs money. So, okay, you're saying change the compensation package to attract more trained people to the field. How are you changing that? On what basis? Are you saying that you understand to change the compensation package? You are talking about the government. The only people that could get in there and give you more money than they are making is the government by redistribution. So you are asking the government to take care of orphans and pay the people high. I am not sure that is an auto-solve as you think it is. RL says now for a caregiver, they're looking for people with master's degree, with 10 years experience. Good luck finding that. Good luck. I'm not saying it's a problem we should have, but it's a problem that always existed, and it's a problem that's going to be difficult to solve. When you have that many of the orphanages or homes being run in such a way that it doesn't pay a large amount, the reality is you kind of attract a certain group of people. Like if you tell people that you get to do a job where you aren't paid a lot, but the main thing you get to do is interact with a lot of vulnerable children, you're going to get all of the most caring, well-meaning, kind-hearted people and all of the creeps. That's the two groups you're going to get. You are going to get the creeps.
That's just the truth, man. And the thing is, I mean, hospice, hopefully, age people, let them do screening, and I think maybe sure you could intensify vetting better, but let's not be naive to the fact that predators hide their predatory nature very well.
Hotep. I think some people, you said you were in a home for a while, and I lived around the home and I had family in the home, so I was around there for a while. I think many people don't even understand how some of these homes run, you know. Like, that's in Mary's home. That's where I lived there for a while. Not in the home, around the home. So I understood, I saw the runnings of it. Some of the caretakers are former wards that grew up and now they returned. And okay, they aren't trained, but they're familiar with everyone. And okay, they may have been abused when they were there, and now they're coming to repeat the cycle. What are you going to do then? Are you going to form a rule that all the wards, once they reach 18, must be forbidden from returning? You see, though, there are technical aspects that if you are not privy to it sounds like, but this isn't a hard thing to solve until you get the knowledge of it. Lestra says scripts are everywhere. We need to find a way to make it easier for the children to be able to talk. Okay, I agree with that. 100% on that. That's something we could do. You could attempt to make more avenues that children feel comfortable to talk, that they feel comfortable to relate things that happen to them. I agree with that 100%. I'm just adding with that a caveat that troubled children sometimes are sociopaths. I don't know if you all interact with children. I do quite a bit of youth work and children work and outreach and all of that. If you interact with some troubled children, they are sociopathic liars. Listen, I have met some 6-year-olds that could lie better than the best liar you have ever met. And they are little girls. Listen, a 6-year-old skilled lying little girl is a very, 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 very dangerous person. So even with allowing children to be more comfortable to talk, there are problems with problem children. That's all I'm saying. That's all I keep saying. Some of these problems are not that straightforward to solve as we'd like to think. RL says after they reach 18, there's a rehabilitation center that's supposed to incorporate them back in society. Lots of supposed to, eh? Lots of supposed to.
See, this is the thing. Rehab centers and jails. So even regular rehab centers, drug abusers can lock them down and keep them inside if they will. That's how it works, right? The thing about it is you know, these attempts at preventing certain things, have people seen regular aids in for the age people knock the living lights out of people, grandparents, and they're on big cameras too. Cameras. And it still happens. It still happens a lot. Tend to see it every day. So it's like some people are there. Yeah, they might know a camera is there and still not living the lights out of it, out of grandchildren.
The reality is, bro. As Listra says here, or what about finding a way to put intermittent polygraph testing for all childcare workers? Maybe. I'm not against things to decrease abuse. I'm not. But the reality is, most people are protected partially by having family. Part of the reason when you go to school that a teacher can't just watch you and slap you in your face is because there's a societal understanding that this child has a family. And if I slap this child, his father may end up in my face slapping me back in return. A problem comes up when you don't have people to fight for you. Those caregivers in the nursing homes that beat up the older people, you won't regularly find that in expensive nursing home where the children of the elderly come and check them on a weekly basis. No, because you know after you slap granny, her grandson is coming tomorrow. The problem arises when you don't have people to seek your interest. And when you don't have people to seek your interest, that's just the issue. You don't have people to seek your interest. And we could say that, all right, we should develop societal institutions and safety nets to try and catch anybody who slips out, so that as a society we seek everyone's interest. But society cannot seek your interest as well as family does, and that is just the reality. No, Dr. Rowley doesn't care about you as much as your daddy would. That's just the reality. No politician cares about you by and large as much as your direct family and community should. And if you don't have a family and community to see about you, things become difficult. And that's the issue with many of those. Happy Tuesday to you too, Kwesi Andrew. Thursday, sorry. RL says a lot of kids in homes too because their parents are drunk, alcoholic abusers, and partiers too. Yes. RL says like 60% have parents literally outside in bars every day. I am aware of that. Not all of the children in homes are orphans with no parents around. Many of them are children with parents who don't want to take care of them. That's the reality. And that's what I was saying. They don't want them. That's just what it is. They don't want them.
You know, what I find funny is that maybe I'm being a little too cynical when it comes to this, but you all had to understand what human beings are. And listen, yeah, we live in the world where, take this stance of great morality and goodness, but listen, humans could be very dark. Like, that's the truth of the matter. That's human. Listen, we could appeal to the morality of humans, but even humans who claim to be of high moral standing will show you that they care about themselves, the immediate people faster than they care about you. And this is why this is why people talk about the shock of UNICEF doing what they do all across the world. Like, you think they're supposed to care about little African kids in Africa? Really? No. Yes, they might want to look in front of the public. End of the day, they don't have to care about them necessarily.
You're right. Hotep, you're 100. You see, Thomas Sowell, the great Dr. Thomas Sowell, had a book where he spoke. I can't remember which one of his books that was, where he spoke. I think it's his latest book, actually, is the one he spoke about that, where he said that many people, by and large, when you're looking out in the political landscape, you see like two different views of the world. There's the Rousseauian view, Rousseau. We spoke about this a while back, where he has a quote: "Man is born free. Everywhere I look, he is in chains." Where they believe that humans are basically perfect. They are a blank slate, that any bad thing you see in a human being is a fault of a societal error. Society trained something bad, and that's why bad things happen. While there's the other view of a fallen state, that mankind is in a fallen state. Basically what you were saying there, Trini Hotep. Mankind is naturally kind of selfish and wicked. They do things for their own purpose and their own benefit to no end. And then, if you have that fallen man understanding of mankind, you understand that the point of society in that case is to try and work around those faults of man. What we're trying to do is hedge in the nature of man to make sure that we don't let man's nature ruin our general society. And if you have those two views, you see, those two views don't work together well when you're making laws. You see, if you're making laws with the Rousseauian view that you believe men are born free and society bounds us up, so it's about if anyone is committing a crime, they're a victim of society. Then you're going to try and release criminals, and you're going to say that criminals need social workers, and we need more psychologists out there. People need therapists, and that's what's going to solve everything in life. While if you have the understanding of a fallen nature of man, you understand, okay, well, maybe we want everybody to be armed so everyone could protect themselves, because really and truly most people are selfish when it all comes down to it. So if we want to depend on people to do something, we could depend on them to be selfish and seek their own interests. So we work for that selfishness, as it were. And that's the same issue when we go to this whole children and taking care of children and taking care of those, and you're looking to hedge in the human nature. You're understanding that abusers are out there. They're going, you have a building full of vulnerable children. It's like candy for abusers. They can't resist it. You have to try and develop systems to try and hedge away from that. And that's not exactly the easiest thing to do. And I understand that. Just now, Hotep, just to just another thing I saw scrolling there as you're saying. Positive radiation on that mandatory dash cams business, boy. Bro, stop it. You do not want the government to make it harder for us to get on the roads. You don't want that. Now, I understand that you would ideally want each car to be able to tell us what happens on the road when something happens. But I don't want it to be that now people need to even get more money just to be on the road. Nah, I already find we already have too high a barrier for people to access transport. That's ridiculous, I find. We need to dial that back. We need to me, take off those inspection laws. Remove them from the books. in my own opinion.
Yeah, you see, to me, I think us humans today, ironically speaking, we don't see ourselves as animals, and that's the problem. By and large, to my like, understand that humans are biologically animals, and just because we are intelligent, like highly intelligent animals and highly social, and that too doesn't mean that we can't do things that on the planet, like care for family and care for their surroundings. I want to defend it or kill somebody else to defend. That's human. You see, this bleeding heart liberal to bleed on stage and talk about I'm not going to eat for a month because the Congo is in danger. No, humans ain't going to do it. No, not to say that humans in general care about other people dying. It's just that they're not going to suffer just because other people are suffering. They're not going to drop at a hat because somebody erroneously beaten behind Beatum Gardens. That's just crazy talk. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, we understand that children are being get that, but the reality of the world is there. It just is there. The same way how women keep talking about God, we need to train men how not to abuse women. I'm like, okay, you sit down a bunch of evil men in the classroom and tell them how much they need not to be misogynistic. Let's see how that works out. This is crazy talk. Yeah, in this society, people want to rehabilitate easy people. That must this is the therapy era we live in. Therapize everything. So we can make 10 Bundy into a golden child.
I don't believe in that, and I find the evidence seems to point in the opposite direction. As we expanded therapy and psychology to more people, we haven't seen the response positively from those people. I disagree with that, to me. RL asks, so are we born evil, or are we trained to be evil, or are we trained to be good? Now, evil, I might consider evil a little different. I wouldn't say we are born evil. I would say we are born wicked. We are born selfish. We are born uncaring. I would say evil is purposeful pursuit of malevolence. That's a little different. I'm not sure. I wouldn't put humans being born that way. But I would say we are born wicked. We are born in that wicked state. We are a fallen species in that sense. If you are a Christian believer in the Christian worldview of things, we are a fallen species by Christian theology, and you understand it from that. But even without that, as Trini Hotep was talking about from the biological point of view, if you're talking biological, we are according to biological theories, living in a world where the theory of evolution is basically the predominant facilitator of life. So if a being is living, it subscribes to the success of what makes you succeed in evolutionary theory. And what makes you succeed is basically selfishness. I need to make sure my genetics are passed down to the next generation. That's the number one focus. Number one focus, my genes, next generation. And that's how you survive evolution. So evolutionarily, you are rewarded basically for selfishness. And that's where I would say we are. So on that note, RL, a study was done, and the most violent human being are 2-year-old males. They're the most violent. If you could have gotten that 2-year-old male mind into an adult, they would have murdered everything in sight. They are the most violent. So I would say society, by and large, the aim of society is to train people into being good members of society. Now, training people into being good and training people into being good members of society aren't necessarily directly the same thing. Good is a moral statement, a moral declaration. You need to have agreement on what you deem morality to be. So training people to be good, you must have a common understanding of what good is. But you could train people to be good members of your society, as in they follow your norms and your mores and all of that. They work well in this society and they are good members of this society. You could train people to do that, and that's what I think happens. We are born wild little things, and we are trained and molded into fitting into our societies that we belong in by and large. Miko says I'm baffled that you all think psychology and neuroscience are trash. I don't think so, you know. I don't think so, you know, Miko. I don't think it's trash at all. I think it's very important. I just think that it has been ideologically captured for the most part. And there's a reason why 99% of psychologists are liberal women. It's not because a scientific reason, it's because of an ideological reason. And when taking the idea of psychology and putting ideological pinnings on it, and expecting conclusions with those ideological pinnings, I think it won't work. That's what I think. I think that doesn't work. Are the tribal cannibals in the Amazon considered evil?
Well, to the general society outside of that show. But you see, it runs the course of the North Sentinel island that has never been colonized and never been traveled.
Go ahead, Trini Hotep. I'll be right back.
Yeah. They have a way of life. They have a sense of whatever they do. So the whole thing about it is that they could do whatever they want on North Sentinel Island, and to them that will be deemed as good. And they have their own sense of what is evil. But if we come about one day that we go to North Sentinel Island and we see they drinking out of the skulls of dead children, we see that as pretty weird because our society has been formulated around certain ideas. So the thing of the matter is that at one point in time something used to be deemed something that used to be deemed evil is now good. That's just how it kind of goes, you know, the evolution of this, the evolution of human progression, and we think about things, or we theorize about things, or we philosophize about things. I mean, at one point in time, people used to think slavery was just the norm, and just had to be a thing, to the point that there were debates on slaves being an inherent biological factor of certain people. Now today, nobody can even fathom a slave being a good thing. You know what I'm saying? To be honest, you all go so far as to say that working for $23 an hour to be slavery. And that's not even slavery. So, you know, that's just how the thing goes. And so the thing about it is like, what's up, Brody? What's up, Brody? I thought it wasn't coming on the live. It's crazy. So yeah. So the thing about it is that, sure, the Aztecs, right? When they now found the Aztecs grave site full up of children, they all to vomit, but to the Aztecs that was no behavior. You know what I'm saying? Like it was normal behavior for Aztecs to do sacrifice. And it was part of Aztec culture, Aztec living, in order to kill babies and sacrifice them.
Hey, Ronnie.
Right, so that was normal, but to us now, that's inhumane. You know what I'm saying? So the thing about it is that we could say morality shift. We could say how humans think about things, sit down and say, okay, this might work best for a progression of a society, and that's just how it goes, right? The same thing is like slavery used to be a thing and used to be normal. Used to think, like at one point that people used to think that a certain demographic of was meant to be slave, it was born to be that.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? Born to serve. No, we can't even think about it. So I'm saying at this present moment, people think that a man working on fries at KFC should be paid $50 an hour, and if he doesn't be paid $50, he is a slave to mega corporations of the world.
You know, I'm not sure 100% where we were going before, but the idea of relative morality, like That is true. There is relative morality out there. Societies do function basically on their own moral compass very often. But to me, that's whether societies function on their own moral compass is a separate thing from whether morality could be established as an objective thing. So, to me, I think morality makes no sense unless you have an objective view, or at least attempt to have an objective view of it. Relativity in morality leads to chaos, at least on our side. But in understanding worldviews, you understand that different societies see this as being relative. That doesn't mean it is, but that is how they see it. So when you're talking about the cannibal tribe in a remote area, not remote, in a remote area, I would think it as an immoral act. I would consider some of those things evil nonetheless, although the society considers it normal. Because there were societies before that oriented themselves towards evil. As Trini Hutep was talking previously about the Aztecs, etc., etc., etc. All of it isn't necessarily the society thought that this was a good thing. There are some societies knew that what they were doing wasn't a positive thing, and they still went down that direction. And that's just that reality. What do we do about that? Who says, this is the thing when you don't, to me, in my opinion, when you don't have a moralistic view of anything, when you don't have any, even religious view of anything, why should we aim at doing good? Why should bad be considered a bad thing? Why is evil a bad thing? Why is good a good thing? If there's no final overarching archetypical view of what is moral, then why do anything? To be accepted in a safe social class and space. So it is selfish in reality. You're not doing good to be good. You're doing good to... So you're basically a sociopath. You're basically a Machiavellian. That's... Under psychology, Machiavellian is one of the big four in the negative traits. It was the dark triad, and I think now it's the dark tetrad. Well, I think it's the dark tetrad now. I think they added another one, and Machiavellian is one of those. And if you are behaving good, pretending to behave good, to be accepted into and space, then that's just being Machiavellian. You aren't really being good, you are being manipulative. And if it is you're saying that all people that do good aren't really good, it's just all manipulation, then that means good isn't even good then. Because manipulation isn't seen as a good thing, is it? Make full circle.
I mean, the thing is this, right? Is how humans structure society is this. Okay, we believe, we have the belief that humans, right? We have the understanding that humans are selfish, right? Obviously, humans are highly social. So, humans at one point in time said, okay, it's better if we would groups get us to the better out living of life. So we formulated groups. And then the group said, okay, we need to discard this hunter-gatherer thing and now do more sedentary things like agriculture. Right? And the birth of agriculture came up, and then people settled down, started to build and rest. Now we could say that that's a great outcome because now we tend to, because obviously these things are very socialist type of things, of course. That is how it is, right? You could also presume that ones understand that to their benefit, the individual, that working with a group benefits the individuals of the group. So American citizens who are individuals benefit from the fact that all Americans gather and come into the United States of America and make it a powerful country to the point where they are safe, well fed. So we could say that on one side of the coin, the willingness to work in a group and organize ourselves into ourselves is a selfish endeavor of ensuring that my lineage and individual family could live on forever. And we could also see it as the fact that we would inherently good in a society to make sure that humans are also good. It's a fundamental human.
Yeah. No, here's part of the issue with that. Previously, most societies that were God, as we were talking about the history through the annals of history of mankind, where we started off with these hunter-gatherer societies and we expanded. The thing is, societies generally would have settled under tribes, a tribal society. So the reason that I am willing to sacrifice for this group is because this group is where my gene pool is located. All of my family is within here. This is my tribe, so I fight for my tribe. And it was easier to get those things. Now, when we change from tribal allegiances to countries, a country is a whole different thing now. There are people that could come from anywhere and just jump into the country. And now, are you saying I must fight for all of them? It's it rewards a more Machiavellian style of selflessness. You see, if everybody in here is my tribe, when my tribe benefits, I personally benefit. If everyone here is anybody, then their benefit is anybody benefiting. So really and truly, I'm looking to get maximum benefit out of this group while putting minimum effort into the group. And that's a kind of incentive system we see in many countries. And that's why when you attempt to do the collectivism style communism and socialism in countries, it becomes a lot more difficult. But if you're doing that in a tribe, if you're doing that in a family, collectivism becomes a whole lot easier because everyone is willing to point it for themselves. And that's why when we're talking about the selfishness in there, you see that in that case. But I'm not necessarily talking about on the societal side being selfish. I'm talking about literal acts, as in behavior, day-to-day behavior, doing everything you do. Whether it's doing it because you think it's good in a cosmic sense and good has a benefit, or is it that you think it's good in a personal sense and there's going to be a physical reward for what you're doing, and it's selfishness like that? Which way do you see it?
I mean, that's just human. I think that's the complexity of humans. Like, either humans going to do good because good is fundamental to the progression of whatever they do for. They're doing good to benefit them. You see, some people would say that person who do good to still benefit themselves are still outputting good into the society. I mean, that's just how some people would view it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the output of somebody doing good. Like let's say a company creates a device that could cure cancer of rip, and he makes profit from that. He's still out good into the society, just reaping rewards off of that. That's just how it is.
Yeah, and I don't see a problem in reaping rewards for good deeds. I think that's the idea of the free market. That's how the free market works. Where's our host? Our host is sleeping, as she tends to do. But you see, the problem with the whole arguments of where good points and all of that is, especially at the level of deciding what direction a society should go in, and deciding what direction a civilization should go in. If you're the decider, you're the person that's creating this direction, the government, the politicians, you can't be limited to selecting what is good based on the norms of the society, because you are the one that is supposed to be directing the norms of society. So which direction should we be going in? That's the idea of good. And that's why you need some kind of external understanding of what good is. And it's not just maximum benefit for self. I don't see it as that way. Anyway, folks, it's a Thursday. Any further questions or comments on the inside? According to the government, apparently we young people on we phone too much. Really?
I know.
Yeah, we are.
But yeah. you see, this is the thing, and you see, this is the thing, data for me is like, okay, when we think about, as I say there, when we think about how countries are now forming, right? Some people would say that, you know, diversity is key. We need a whole bunch of different groups of people in a country in order to make it successful. Some people might say a hegemony would be best. And then some people might even further that and say an ethnic homogeny might be best than a religious hegemony. And to me, if we get down to the brass tacks of certain thing, when we look at it, a country that really progresses very fast and hard is a country that has a hegemony of things that are common to certain groups in their culture, their ethnicity, their religion. That's just the truth. Like if we take the Vikings for instance, let's take the Vikings. The Vikings had a particular culture and a particular way of worshiping gods. And if they stayed, if they didn't obviously expand out and they stayed there, they probably might have survived till on the same breath, and they probably progress faster than most, right? Because if we take what, because when the Vikings invaded England, I mean, look at England now. You understand what I'm saying? Look at trajectory of certain countries when you inject certain things in it, right? England is no country where they worship one thing. Same with a lot of countries. Culture is different, everything is different. That's just the truth of the matter. So it's harder to get around to present society where you have to debate on things. A country that is a hegemony fully mass form doesn't have to necessarily necessarily debate where to push the society further. They already know where to go. You understand?
Yeah, yeah. You're right. You're right, and I regularly point at that where the idea that multicultural countries are the goal. I don't know that to be an automatic positive thing. I don't know if I agree with that because multiculturalism presents some real difficulties, and I think on the in the ultimate sense some difficulties that we aren't even sure how we would resolve them. So one of the prime examples I make: Hindus, Muslims, Christians see marriage when it should start as a different thing, especially when compared to the Western progressive worldview. If you ask some Western progressive feminists, they may say that someone should never marry. It might make sense we make marriage illegal because some Western feminists believe that marriage is in and of itself a patriarchal institution made to oppress women. Okay, so they may say outlaw marriage, while some religions may say marriage should be legal from the age of 9. And how do those two work together? Because, all right, you're saying compromise, but if my religion says it's best that you marry young, it's ideal that you marry off young. I am looking to marry off my child from puberty. But then you're telling me your belief says my child should never marry. And we both believe our belief is how we get a good outcome. I believe this is how I get the good, and if I follow what you say, I'm going to go bad. And you believe the same thing. Whose view do we take? And you see, in a democracy, what happens is whoever is the majority, we take that view. So if we have the majority of people have the view that 9-year-olds should be able to marry, well, that's the view we're going to take. Should that be? And you see, that's the problem with multiculturalism. While if the thing is that all of us have the same view, we're going to be okay with going with that view. And to me, something that you see happening is we are able then to see which one succeeds more. And I am kind of okay with that. I I'm okay with allowing people to do what they see might be best, and allow these people to do what they see might be best, and we will see which one works best.
I mean,
I'm not necessarily saying this about child marriage. I think that should be illegal, personally.
that
But
should be legal.
I'm just saying the problems it creates.
I think America falls to the trap every day. Like America falls for the whoopsie like all the time because it's funny, right?
Yeah.
Americans, especially American liberals, love to talk about the fact that the the unique thing about their country is the fact that many different people please. But when it comes on politics of America, you quickly see how jet every single man and child of different cultures into one place, you tend to get a lot of things. You tend to get headbutting, you tend to get polarizing, and the people don't quite understand that. Okay, you inject a bunch of Pakistani Americans into the mix, and they make a lot of money. And then you think that they must abide by American values and standards. They don't. They don't take your stuff. They adhere to what they adhere to. And if you inject them into your politics, they are going to say, nope, nope. Just because I immigrate here doesn't mean I have to adopt everything you adopt. Yeah, that's how you inject other different groups. And the other different groups say, well, we're going to headbutt on this. And that's what people are not understanding. So when it gets to anything and people say Roe v. Wade was overturned, I'm like, what did you expect? Did you expect that everybody was going to agree? No. And it's funny because you all think women supposed to agree when there's multicultural women in America who could vote.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work nice for you. Now, if America was a hegemony, then you all could have probably had women voting with their thumb on a print for everything they want. But it's not like that. Now, in countries like India, you could get more. So I'm saying, if the women want to uprise in India tomorrow, things that they could do it. Because they all follow a similar trend. They mostly are Hindu, mostly follow a particular culture, and they could get what they want. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So,
Well, the difficulty might be the culture itself in certain places in India, as has been highlighted of late. India hasn't been getting good public good
that
PR.
is bad right now.
Yeah, that PR.
Somebody needs to be the PR for India. That's
Yeah.
crazy. And the thing is, you know what's funny? India has a president at the moment.
No. President, no, it could be because the prime minister is Modi. I don't
The
know.
prime minister is a man, and the president runs the country as a woman. She's the first woman, ethnic group to be. So it's funny that India getting bad PR while is the president. I want to know how are going to that. They might say she's involved in.
You see, the problem with feminists is they have a collectivist view of the world. They view women as always being fiercely loyal to other women, while that's not true. The person I'm most loyal to isn't men. Like, I'm a man, Trini Hotep is a man. My wife is a woman. I'm more loyal to my wife than this random guy on the internet. Like the idea that you determine which cross groups and cross sections in society are the most loyal, and at least with the original fat guy Marx, at least with him, he selected a cross group that generally does have more affinity and loyalty. Class was a sensible group to divide society by. I'll give Marx that, because there are obviously class groups in society and there is class warfare that goes on, and that's why Marx was so successful. These neo-Marxists that attempt to take the collectivist view and put them into everything, feminism, race, they put it into sex and gender, they put it into race with this critical race theory and these kinds of things. I don't think it works like that. It's all black people are not the most loyal to other black people in the world. That's not true. Black people in the world do not function as a collective. That's not true. The Pan-Africanists would love if it were, but it's not.
Of course, we would love it. We would love that. Obviously, we had to live with the reality of that's not going to be a thing. Now, maybe you could get some sort of network with black people in terms of somness, but to get black people to think like a hive mind is insane. Tell people this a lot. They're not going to get it. They're not going to get it. You can't even get it with a population within a country. How are you going to get it across different countries? So the thing about it is like, you see, even with the class thing, you can only get it to a certain degree because not even because not
Yeah,
even.
here's how the class thing doesn't even work totally. The class, you know, where they found why a lot of the neo-Marxism was developed? The United States. Free market systems. Because good free market systems, they started to realize the lower classes don't want to overthrow the upper classes. They want to become the upper classes. So in the US, they could not get that class warfare they wanted because there was so much class mobility that I could work hard and reach up there. I don't want you taking land and resources from people who have land and resources because my aim is to work hard and acquire my own land and resources. I have no interest in that. So that's why that old school style of Marxism failed. You look at the neo-Marxists, the critical race theorists, and they said that the class warfare side wouldn't work in the US. These people could make money and elevate their status. It's not working. We can't get that class friction. The poor people happy. So here's what we do. We'll get the race friction because you know that the US has some shaky foundations when it comes to their racial relations. So if we get the races to believe that actually the warfare is in between the racial groups, then we could get our revolution. We could get the warfare between the classes, and then wow, we could get our revolution then. And they did to some extent.
To some extent, but if I'm being real with this thing, black people in civil rights since 1964, and if black people and white people were segregated today, maybe you could have got the race war that they wanted. That goes for Marxist neoliberals. But since black people and white people now congregate for the last 50 something odd years in certain places, they share certain ideals together, they be poor together, rich together, they no longer different, they use the same toilets. It's very hard to get that thing right. So to me, I don't see that. And what's funny is that America love this thing about wealth inequality. And nobody never said that wealth inequality. I think it's always been a thing. But this idea that America is this Soviet Union Berlin thing, never that. Too many people to America and sheen of ladder every day. Black America are doing better than they ever have been, and that's crazy. Even though, yes, to some certain degree, Black America wealth hasn't really shifted, but for the vast individuals, so the thing about it is to get this whole period and bourgeoisie war that some of them want hard to get. You could get that in a Berlin era. You could probably get it in China. Maybe even in China, you can probably get it in Mao Zedong time. Now where China is very economically strong to capitalistic policies, you wouldn't get that as much.
Yeah,
So it's like
that's just the reality, eh? And I always say this with Trinidad: rich people don't revolt, by and large. That's just the reality. So you're right. If things are going relatively good, you aren't going to get those people to do what you want them to do. If it was the case in the United States, that's why they attempt to push all of those narratives. If it was the case in the United States that the police killed thousands of unarmed black men every year, yeah, you may have been able to get that war. That's not even the case, even though they tried that one. They keep trying those things. If it was the case that you could directly point to systemic racism that keeps down the black people, but you can't actually point to laws and the books. You could point to historical factors, but you can't point to things on the books. There's nearly nothing right now that could make that spark off point. That's why those people who engage in that kind of thing love things like that George Floyd incident, that they were able to ride and attempt to push into the narrative direction they want. But it's just not the reality. And I think it's not the reality because it is not the reality. I don't think people see things in groups. I don't think that if the wealthy people in Trinidad that keep you down, I don't think that they're keeping you down because you're black or because you're any other color. It's because they're selfish. It's an individualistic thing. I don't think even the wealthiest class of people are doing it just because they love their fellow class and they hate their lower classes. It's not that. It's on their own merit. They're trying to see about it for themselves. If you could have gotten a wealthy, higher class person to get benefit by elevating a lower class person, and shafting their own fellow high class person, they would do it because it's for their benefit.
Yeah, this is why I never understood this thing. And listen, I never said that certain things would happen, but to the strenuous thing that people talk about, um, just know, right? Men aren't oppressed systematically to the point of there's a need to now fight some gender war. No, sure, some woman somewhere in the is getting paid less money than her counterparts in the city, and that probably needs to be addressed. But it ain't fair. And it might be just those women's situation. And that be the address. But it's not to say the government is not passing laws that women are being paid 1 cent a day is crazy. So to me, to me, is we could talk about some company being racist and some institutions being racist and misogynistic, but to say that this is widespread across the place like it's handmaid's tale, that's far fetched thinking, to be honest. And my goodness.
And I think, and my point with that isn't that they aren't racist people or racist companies, all of that. But I think by and large, the racism that you see is racism to their own benefit. It's not like there is a secret plan where all whites go to a convention and they come together to work against the other races. I don't think that's it. People have natural in group biases, and it just so happens that if I'm white, most of my family is also white. So it's not that I like all white people. I probably mostly like my family, but they happen to be white too. Trini Mike says, funny, I never hear feminists fighting for equality in the construction industry. They regularly talk. You regularly hear anti-feminist people talk about that, where feminists only fight for the positives, it seems. Yes, women are underrepresented in certain boardrooms, but they're also underrepresented as sewage workers, but you don't see them fighting to work in the sewers.
Well, because this is, let's be real, this has never been about helping the fellow. This has all been helping the in group, the women who are wealthy, probably upward that is higher than most. I haven't seen feminists in New live in high rises and work in nice, stiff company, comfortable jobs into middle America, where probably a woman construction worker that wears a hard hat and makes sure she sends her children to school for her $50 measly dollars an hour, has gone there and said, we need to get you a ring. You understand what I'm saying? She's some high fluting woman. The city is probably just walking to her doors and talking to her politicians and making lots of money from bureaucracy. That's just it. It's never been about helping the fellow woman. So be serious.
Yeah, it's never been about that. It's never been. And that, and I will say never to, like some, even probably even me to some extent, I would have said, or many people would have said in the past, like it's not the first wave, not the second wave, or this wave. I think the more I read about the history, all the waves were kind of on the same idea. Feminism started off as a terrorist group, and when you look at the ideals and ideas of the start of feminists, a lot of them were Marxists of that era. They were aiming at overthrow. That's their aim, and that's why a lot of women of that era weren't with them. They were attempting to put something forward that many people didn't experience as a reality. I despise the spread of the feminist narratives in our generation, where many people have a default look of history under a feminist lens without even knowing it. It's because we went to school under that dispensation, if you will. So something that I've realized, many people have a worse view of fathers than fathers actually are. Like, many people have a view that by and large fathers are worse than mothers. But that's not true. There are many, 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 many good fathers out there doing their job as best as they can. There have always been them. But you get the feeling like the majority of fathers aren't that good. You get the feeling like history was men abusing women through all the way walking through history. Well, that's not true. The reality was men oftentimes faced the worst of it, while sometimes women did. And it was humanity versus nature through history. It wasn't like the men were fighting to oppress the women going through time. That's not true. But that's the history that many people were taught. I would literally, it's about gaining status, not equality with them. That's clear based on how they pick their battles. Yes, I agree. RL says, and then this whole other thing come about. I like, even the talk where they talk about what feminism was about, was first about getting women the right to vote. You all know women couldn't vote. You all know men couldn't vote either. You all know democracy wasn't the commonality of human history. So the idea that, all through history, the men could vote and the women couldn't, that's not even true. That's not even true. When it started off, it wasn't even all men could vote. When women went in to get their right, they got their right as all women could vote. When men got their right, they got it as a responsibility. You are responsible to vote. If you do X, Y, Z, then you get this responsibility and privilege based on these things that you do. Women got it as a right. All of y'all, just for being born with 2X chromosomes, go out there and vote. And then you have these people. Here's one of the things I hate the most right before you jump in Trini Hotep. Like in most countries, women could vote for people to send us to war, but they aren't required to fight in the war. No, if these people could send us to war, then only people who could fight in the war should be able to vote for them. It's that simple to me. You should not be able to vote to send people to war when you are not required to do it. It's like, and regularly you see things like this when feminists talk about no uterus, no opinion in the abortion debates, where they say a man shouldn't be able to say whether a woman could or couldn't have a child. Okay, but how could you tell men to go to war?
To defend the same rights, but the thing about it, when it was literally 6 men that give them the right to have abortions. Anyway, but anyway, this is funny because men and listen, people mightn't like it, but men in totality only right to vote because the fact that the draft has been a thing.
Yes,
that's literally it. If the draft wasn't a thing, probably even now most men might not have the ability to vote.
Yes.
It would have only been men who had.
And that's it. The voting is based on having a say. Okay. A government in this area spends the resources they acquire from the people of this area, from the people who own land in this area. So, okay, if this government is spending resources from the landowners in this area, then the people that should choose who spends the landowners' money should be the landowners. And that's why the people who voted were landowners. Okay, we're moving past just spending landowners' money. Okay, we do spend the landowners' money, but also we send the men to fight wars. So although you don't own land, you could end up dying for this country. So in that case, you should have a say in who gets to send you to die, even if you don't own land. So okay, we give all of you who signed up for the draft, all right, you get a say in selecting too. That makes sense. But if you don't pay to run the government, if you don't work to defend the government, what business do you have selecting the government? Dream Chaser says back when only men of a certain status could vote, it's similar to your argument now about going to war. And I agree with that. That's what I'm saying, Dream Chaser. I don't have a problem with those times. If I live on Robert Street has 10 homeowners. The 10 homeowners pay $100 monthly to take care of Robert Street. Would we want somebody who lives elsewhere, or somebody who comes and just sits on the street and lime in Robert Street? They come and start to select who they want to come and spend our money, but you don't have any say in this place. Why are you telling me what to do with the resources we accumulate when you don't pay into it? Like, I don't understand what people think this world is. I blame it on institutionalizing people till they're 24 in schools. The schools have given us an erroneous view of the world. This is not a school. There's no principal and dean to come in the class and make sure box lunch share fair and the government sending the box lunch. That's not the world we live in. The world we live in is who have more corn, feed more fowl, because that's the reality. Fowl need corn. The chicken need to eat corn. If you don't have enough corn, you cannot feed the chicken. If I have more corn, I feed more chicken. If I am planting corn and feeding my chicken, where do you come in saying what I do with my chicken? You are greedy and out of place. If you want to see what happens, then pay into it or defend it. So I'm not saying that the women should not be given that option, but go all the way. Sign up for the draft. If something needs defending, you have to defend it too. Or you're saying, no, we're treating women like a different kind of citizen because women are, and in that case, men are the defenders. And if men are the defenders, leave that up to the men. And I know this one controversial. If we say that men alone should vote, that one real controversial. But if the men are fighting, who should vote?
You would think it would be people who have a vested interest and actually lay down actual lives and have things to lose.
Yeah.
You see, and people want to know why the political landscape is. You see, we could blame the government how much we want. The government is just there to represent the.
And you're training out up a cutting here right there, bro, because you bring up a nice point to something I want to join in there. The government is there to represent the people, but the government represents the people that vote for it. So, if the people that vote for it are the people who have landed say in the country, then the government would be a representation of the people who have landed say in the country. So the government would treat with the country as with the best interests of landowners of the country. Now, if the majority of people who are in the country have no say in anything, they don't pay in, all they do is take out. So then obviously the government would become a representative of the leeches of the society. If you open up voting to mostly the net negative tax tax earners in the country, the people who have to get stuff, then you're going to have a net negative style of governance. And that's what most democracies have turned into. That's why many countries want to talk now about opening up voting to under 18 and open up to 16, like those mad leftists in the United States. Open up to 14-year-olds. Why do you think they want that? Because they know 14-year-olds don't work a place. 14-year-olds don't have a parrot and a stick to take care of. So they are obviously going to vote for selfish interests. And we are now in the era of selfish interest government. Because you have selfish interest voters. Yeah, Hotel.
I think that's literally it. I think the political landscape, because we ask for government. We the people ask for government. We overthrown monarchies. We say we want election. We say we want representation of a civil kind. Okay? Ask for it, you all got it. So we also cause the fact of government being what they are. That's the truth. Why is voter turnout so low? Well, when in the country really have vested interest within the country and they vote whatever makes them feel good when they turn at night, and obviously ideology run the show. If it ain't about my ideology, then fire with the rest of the population, because apparently that's how it's supposed to go. Then, of course, your government is just going to devolve into nonsensical babble of this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Like, I want to talk about how much politicians in trying to be good. But my God, that turnout is low. Because nobody have a vested interest in the country necessarily, and ideologies run the show.
Bro, you know, like, people speak as if automatically our democratic systems are automatically better than monarchies. I don't subscribe to that necessarily. Because, like, for a monarchy, all right, you're saying one man has supreme leadership here, and this man might be looking to damage my country. But the idea of a monarchy is this country belongs to this person. If the country fails, the person fails. Usually, if the country fails, the person dies. That's how it goes with kingdoms. If your country fails, your head is on a stick somewhere. So you have literally vested interest in this country going as good as possible. Because not only is it for me, it's for my children. I have to leave this for my children and my children's children. So I have to look after this thing for as long perpetually into the future as possible. And now sometimes we look at the reality of history and think that it points at the reality of governance. So, okay, through history, humanity had a progressive history where technology and technological advancements and discoveries allowed us to become wealthy and more comfortable over time. So we look at now and see the wealth and comfort of most democracies and assume that that wealth and comfort is only based on the democratic business, and that monarchy wouldn't have been able to do it. I don't necessarily have that view. And I think that oftentimes we devolve into an oligarchic kind of leadership when we have what we call this democracy. So, okay, there is no king here, but it's a ruling class of people. There are a group of people that get to the top, put themselves at the top, and make laws to make sure that they remain at the top. At least with the monarchy, we understand, all right, King George is King George, and Prince Harry is Prince Harry. We know who the kings and princes are. We know that they are kings and princes, and we know what's going on here. But in this case, we're saying that, and the audacity of it is that in some of the systems, they actually call their prime minister their chief servant. This is our chief servant, and we all pretend like this person is the person that serves us all, while we know it's just another name for a king in modern contexts. And although they don't call themselves kings and princes and lords and ladies, they create an oligarchic leading group, and it's just part of that small group that are in most positions. Look at the boards. Look at the boards that run this country, the state boards. So, okay, back in the day when the king was in charge, he would put his lords and ladies in different areas and to control the exchequer and to control the treasury and all of that and all of that. Now we have the friends and family. Okay, is it big, a whole big difference now? No, it's the same kind of system, just in a different name. So the idea that the democratic systems are naturally automatically better, I don't buy that. And it's something they're trying to sell you. RL says so true. It is a ruling class of people. All these ministers with their $1 million UK degree. Yep, and I was making that point. I made the point quite a few times where we talk about some of the things that we want to create in society, not understanding that they are creating and sectioning off pieces of society for their children too. If you make it that the only people that could be employed in these 50,000 plus jobs are people who spent 8 years doing a study that cost $100,000 per year, then you're basically saying only the children of the wealthy could get into that area. And when we as the population lobby to make sure you want licensing and you want regulation for everything, make sure all hairdressers must be licensed and regulated. Okay, well then Nancy from next door can't comb hair anymore. The only hairdressing saloons you could get is when a minister's child pays who they pay, and they know who they know, and they get what they get, and they open the big saloon, and that's the system we live in. So you have to be careful that by asking for the government to do more and do more, we are giving more power to an oligarchy. Basically, we are giving up our freedom and giving the power to a select group of an elite ruling class. You don't want that. You don't want to live in a system where you're locked out and they are the only people at the top there.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is that I think I think living in a representative democracy tends to get very, 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 very more corrupt than absolute monarchy. And people could say it how much they want, but when you have people claiming to talk to you and talk about this is for the shareholders and we do this for the shareholders of the country and we do this for the people. We here to serve the people. This is crazy. This is oligarchic. At least Russia don't lie to its people. They let you know, hey, we are democratically backsliding. We have to stay as for 25 years. This is oligarchic, right? And you see, the thing is that Russia hasn't necessarily stepped out that kind of absolute supreme kind of thing. They move from czars straight into a supreme leader like behavior, and it has never stopped. Right? China is the next one. China has never stepped into actual representative democracy. They are run by an oligarchy. That's the facts. People don't understand what that is.
And as some people, as I've seen some people point out, they say basically China is still run by an emperor.
It conceives.
Like the Chinese never really changed quite.
Yeah, they moved from a macho-led government into a man who was the son of a farmer, a wealthy farmer, and he selected his chief boys, which would be men who certain pieces of China. That seems to be very emperor China-like.
Bro, all that happened. This happened many times in China's history, you know? It was basically a new emperor took over. And he deposed the old emperor and put in his new people. It's kind of like and that's what some people say, that's why China is able to function like that better, because the country as a whole is accustomed to running like that.
And it kind of is. So the thing about it is when people talk about democracy and trying to go in and disrupt the stay out the people business, no one can even get it together over there. Like, listen, leave Saudi Arabia to their absolute key. They have been in that. Your democratic American style can't even get on page to get so. What's funny is that the American government does more than the absolute monarchy. So
I was going to say that because that democratic talk is a facade. As we spoke about with abortion, abortion wasn't passed through democratically in the United States system, and that's the problem many on the conservative and right wing side had with many of those rulings. These things were not democratically put upon the society. It was an elite few carried it to the court. The court, with their elite few, said that we deem this to be the better way that this country runs. Blung. And by decree, it is. And they highlight that each progressive president in the United States gives more and more executive orders. Now, an executive order is a modern word for a decree. That's what kings did. They decreed the law as, "Thus saith the king." Bang! Well, that's what a lot of US presidents are doing now. Executive orders like rain. President Biden entered the White House and on the first day signed off a couple dozen executive orders or something like that. Decree, decree, decree. The democratic system, the idea of the democratic system. Listen, let me explain it. At least in the US context there, because they keep studies on a lot of these things, so it's easier to explain on a wider basis. The idea of the democratic system is that each person votes for a representative. The representatives go into their Congress, or in our case, Parliament, and the representatives discuss ideas and pass laws based on what the people that selected them would want. So, if abortion had to pass democratically, what would happen is someone believes that abortion should be legal in the United States. They draw up a law on it, bring it to the Congress. They debate it there. Well, I don't know how their debates go exactly. It might go to one of their subcommittees or something like that. And then they vote on it there. And if the majority of people in my district want abortion, when it comes up in Congress, I vote yes. If the majority of people in my district don't want abortion, when it comes up in Congress, I vote no. That's how it gets passed democratically. Same thing with gay marriage. Same thing with a lot of those other more progressive ideas. Those things weren't passed by a Congress. It wasn't passed democratically. That's why up till now, it still creates so much friction. It's not like they went to Parliament and the majority of the country had a positive view of these things. It was top-down edict. So for them to pretend like everything they do is all by democracy, that rainbow flag you see flying all about the place, the US didn't vote on that. I am pretty certain the majority of people in the US are anti-LGBTQIA2+. It just so happens that the majority of the ruling class are pro this thing, so that's why you see it. So don't even believe them on the democracy thing. I agree with you, Hotep. Let them mind their business when they're talking about bringing democracy to a lot of places. Dream Chaser asks, would you prefer to live in a democratic society or a capitalist society? Democratic isn't exclusive of capitalist. Capitalist refers to economic, democracy refers to politics. So how you elect the people is democratic. How the economy is run is capitalist. Now, I prefer to live in a free market society. That's what I consider the better term for capitalist. I think capitalist is a term devised by the Marxists. That's why I would use it, but I don't always like to. I prefer free market, but I don't think that free market necessitates a democratic system. We don't have to vote for leaders for there to be a free market. There could be a monarchy that allows a free market. There have been many monarchies where trade blossomed under the monarchy.
I think.
I'll caveat on this. There have been monarchies where citizens, you wouldn't be a citizen in a monarchy, where subjects of the monarchy are wealthier than the monarch.
That's true. That's true. That has happened already. And so we done a lot of Muslim sultanates blossomed as trading kingdoms, like legit.
And bro, some of those some of those monarchies were better free markets than the democracies because they didn't have the level of bureaucracy. Isn't China kind of free market? Kind of. They're free market with eyes over your shoulder, watching everything you're doing.
Yeah, well, China still employs the cronyism. It's just that they don't strangle whole economy and say,
Is
so we're going to choke on it to that anymore. So
is which market is free? So all right, you could be free to function on the global market. As in, if you are a massive company in China, you could trade with the US companies and the European companies easily, no problem. But to become a massive company in China, you have to toe the party line. You have to be a party loyalist. You don't just get there just like that. It's not a free market to become that top company. But once you are that top company, I could go up on Alibaba all now and talk to Huang Xing Enterprises Limited out of rural Guangzhou province and order a mini excavator and it's shipping in a box for the next month, tomorrow. Less paperwork to get things out from China than in some other more democratic places. So certain areas they have freed the market, and what sometimes some of those areas do is they create zones. So you could create a free market zone in an area, a free market zone in an area. So like in some of those Arabian countries where they have religious laws that make doing certain things more difficult, they would create zones where certain laws and certain habits don't pertain or are not strictly enforced. Dream Chaser says, with that being said, we could leave our current prime minister for another 15 years. It's a joke. Here's the thing. If our prime minister had to depend on Trinidad's success for his wealth, for his life, and for the future of his children, as in his children had to come here and rule right after him, that's a whole different thing. I believe his children live considerable pieces of the year, if not in entirety, out of Trinidad. How many politicians in Trinidad, their children live outside of Trinidad? How many of them? A lot. A lot. But that's, for example, that's a simple one, straightforward, that in most monarchies, you don't get away with that. Your child has to come and rule hereafter.
yeah, well, you see, that's the thing. But I think they do for that style because a lot of children of monarchs did live outside the country and for schooling, for many other
For
different
schooling,
reasons.
but not for living.
So it's funny because you know, America being the that really blew down the facade really and truly because they talk too much. America puts it in mouth a little too much. So when they tout that they are and yes, America is one of the freest countries on the planet, but when they talk about their democracy is so great and so it's like, bro, get get your law, freedom and equality for all. So you're technically be democratically backsliding like Russia does.
And
You'll just go the frequency and probably level they do, but definitely do
yeah.
it.
And bro, I don't actually believe it's totally just their laws that did it. It's culture. If you look at what developed the United States, you took at that point in time the most advanced continent, Europe. At that point in time, at different points in time, different continents had different advancements. But at that point in time, they were the most advanced. And then you took everyone with the adventurous entrepreneurial spirit and told them there's opportunity for you in this new world. So the adventurous, entrepreneurial spirited people from the most advanced continent with a moralistic worldview, Christianity, went and developed a country. Okay, the laws I think were pretty well thought out, but I don't think it's actually the laws that allowed it. It's the culture. It's the culture. The selected group of people that did it, and that's what they created. And now that the culture is changing, the laws can't stop it. The laws aren't going to stop them from crashing because the laws are so great. No, it's the culture. If the culture changes, it's all naught. It doesn't work. Ronnie says it's their self-loathing. And I heard some people say that that kind of self-loathing comes from the Protestant worldview in the first place. That worldview of looking into yourself to see the mistakes in yourself so strongly, and that's kind of the reason they ended up in that place in the first place. I've heard some people. I don't know. I don't know. Interesting conversations. Anyway, people, it's closing in on 11:30. That's about all we're going to have for now. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. This has been the Mindful Live. I am Nathan Springer. It's Thursday Talks. We're not going to be here tomorrow, unfortunately. I am busy tomorrow, so this is the last live for the week. So I'll be seeing you guys. The next live is going to be next week, Monday. Trini Hotep jump back in, so we're going to get your closing statement, bro. Let me hear it. What you have to say before we go?
Yeah, big up democracy, man. Big up democracy. Democracy is why people on TikTok in Trinidad and Tobago is talking about any monopoly between the mobile and diesel. I was having this conversation really early on work, though. That's crazy. Internet service providers and things like that. You see, this is the thing, right? We want to believe that democracy is just the end all be all, and that gives us the greatest win. When that's not necessarily true. We tend to get these kind of things with democracies. We tend to get cronyism. See rampant through the place. State-owned companies not doing what they're supposed to do, what they're supposed to be representing the shareholders. Listen, if we had to actually vote for which system gives us the best outcome, we would be shocked at how much humans would pick something different that we think is inherently evil. Crazy stuff. But be mindful, not mindless.
Amen on that, bro.
System.
Over on YouTube, Lamb says, considering what black American ancestors went through after slavery ended in America, anything other than capitalism works, to be fair. I think people blame capitalism for wickedness. like if there aren't wicked people inside of socialism or Marxism. Wicked, greedy people exist everywhere, and I don't think capitalism is that problem. Lam also says, but I do think things are better now, though there's only positives in being a good person. So it all depends on who's in power and if their intentions are good for the collective group or the elite few. I agree. It just doesn't make sense to me to be a ruler and not try to help as much people for generations to come, giving all people agency over their lives. I agree. Akiba, I see you over on YouTube too. TikTok fighting me tonight, boy. It keeps kicking me out. Well, I guess you came back on TikTok because I saw you there. All right, people, what's that, Hotep?
I'm gonna say expecting your leader to help every single citizen is the most insane, utopic view of the 21st century. Because that's never going to happen.
I agree. It's never going to happen.
Do it. King George V couldn't do it. That's the truth. And to think that these people aren't complex and he's just inherently an evil man because he does things wrong. No. Rowley's a complex man.
Mm-hmm.
He just is. And sure, he might be the greatest leader this country has ever seen. But the man isn't inherently evil, nor is he might even be majority evil. He might just be bad at governance. That's it. Just like our king was bad at leading this country that he owns. That's crazy.
Yep. RL says socialism for the win once the infinite money glitch is found. Bro, we already could make infinite money. Infinite money isn't the problem. Infinite resources is the problem. Because money isn't resources. Money is supposed to represent resources. So if you have an infinite supply of money, all that means is your money infinitely means your money is infinitely worth nothing. If you have an infinite supply of resources, then that works for socialism. If there's an infinite supply of bread and cheese and juice and milk and houses and bricks and cement and all, if there's an infinite supply of that, then beautiful, we could give everyone what they want. But I don't think there would ever be an infinite supply of that. So hard luck for the socialists. If everyone is rich, who plays play away? There are some rich people who play away. And the reality is, here's how that works. Absolute poverty doesn't predict for levels of crime. Relative poverty tends to. What that means is most people don't have a problem with their level of wealth on its own. Most people have a problem seeing other people wealthier than them. So if everyone is equally rich, then that would work. But if everyone is rich, but there are some richer in the rich, still gonna make problems. We are all richer now than the richest man in the world 100 years ago. And we still aren't satisfied. Alright people, that's all I have for now. Be educated, informed, and entertained. This has been the Mindful Live. I am Nathan Spring. I'll see you guys again for the next Mindful Live, which is going to be next week, Monday. I know Monday is Easter Monday, but I think I'll jump in on Monday too. I'll see you guys then. If not Monday, you'll see me Tuesday for sure. Latest people, blessings, hold it down, stay safe on this long weekend. Don't get yourself in no trouble. Look out for the Ionics driving behind you. Look out for the women who are caretaking children. All of that. And I'll see you guys again.